Welcome to the video assembly guide for the cone by Wiski. Here we have all the items laid out you'll need to build the cone. We'll go through them quickly. We have the small wood cap, the large wood base, 3 wood posts, a selection of pieces of felt, a bag with hardware in it, a scratching wrap, either felt or sisal depending on which model you purchased, 2 halves of the plastic shell, front and back, and the instruction manual so you can follow along with the illustrated instructions. You'll also need a regular Phillips head screwdriver, which is not included in this package. Please do not use power tools, as they could damage some of the wood components, making them unusable. For the first step, you'll need the large wood base, as well as the 6 small adhesive rubber feet which you can find in the bag of hardware. You'll want to start by flipping the base over so the wider end is facing up towards you and the slightly narrower end is down on the table. If there's any confusion about this, check the small drill hole inside any of the 3 notches. Each should be closer to the table than to the top of the piece. Now take your 6 adhesive rubber feet and place them roughly evenly spaced around the perimeter of the wood base. They should be about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Now that you've done that, you can flip your base over and move on to the next step. In this step, we're going to continue with the wood base and we're going to use the 3 wooden posts. We're also going to use 3 large screws, which you can find in the hardware bag, and the screwdriver as well. We're going to start by grabbing one of the wood posts. Now we want to pay particular attention to the holes at the end of the post. One of the holes is quite close to the edge and the other is a bit further away, and this further away hole is what we're going to use for this step. Also pay attention to the small hole drilled in the middle of the post. One side has the hole and the other side is smooth without the hole. We want to make sure this small hole is facing out when we screw the post into the base. Now grab one of your screws and insert it through the hole in the post and into the drill hole in the base, and give it a turn or 2 by hand to get it started. Now tighten it down with a screwdriver and make sure you don't over tighten it. All we're looking for is a snug fit to make sure the post isn't wobbling around. Now you can go ahead and repeat these steps with the following 2 posts. Once you're done, make sure that you have the correct hole at the bottom and that the small drill hole is facing out on each of your posts. Now's a great time to have a cat come double check your work. They'll be sure to let you know if you've done anything wrong up until this point. Next, we'll need the small wood cap, as well as the other 3 large screws. Now orient the cap with the 3 notches corresponding to the position of the 3 wood posts. With the narrow side of the cap facing up, slide the cap upwards into place until the top of the cap is flush with the top of the posts. Take your 3 screws and insert them through the holes in the posts and give them each a turn or 2 to get them started and to hold the cap in place. You can now tighten them down with a screwdriver. And just like last time, they don't need to be over tightened, just snug so that everything is held firmly in place. Next, we're going to use one of the felt strips, as well as the washer and one of the small screws from the hardware bag. You can choose any of the felt strips you like. We're only going to use one for this cone. I'm choosing yellow for the purposes of this video. Fold the felt strip in half to make a loop, and insert the loop into the slot in the top of the cone, about halfway. Place the washer on the screw and insert the screw through the holes in the felt loop and into the hole on the underside of the wood cap. Tighten with a screwdriver, and you can see here that I'm tightening it until the felt becomes mildly compressed. Now pull the loop up to take out any slack, and you can pull the sides out a bit to give it a slightly more desirable shape. Next, we'll need the 4 adhesive hook coins that you can find in the hardware bag. Peel them off the sheet and place them evenly spaced around the perimeter of the cone. Once again, they should be about 1/4 inch from the edge. Next, we'll need the small felt pad. Squeeze the loop and insert it through the slot in the pad, and push the pad down until it's on the top of the cone. Push down firmly over the area with the hook coins to secure it into place. At this point, you can reshape the loop again if you'd like. Now set everything aside from the previous step and take out the 2 halves of the plastic shell. You'll notice they're a bit different. The front has a large opening, and the back has a series of small holes running down the middle. It's also important to note here that one side of the material is smooth or shiny, and the other side is more bumpy or matte. In this step, both pieces should have the matte side facing down towards the table, as that will eventually become the exterior of the cone. Now gently lift up the ends of the sheet that are closest to each other and begin to carefully slide the tabs of one piece through the slots of the other. They should be at roughly a 90-degree angle. You can lay the sheets flat to help get the last couple tabs into place. Once your tabs are properly interlocking, you can pull the sheets apart slightly to set the tabs into place and remove any gaps. Now we're going to fold the ends over and lock the tabs on the outer edges into place. Fold the ends up and fold one end in towards the middle until it's almost touching the middle of the sheet. Fold the other end over the top of that side, and one by one insert the tabs into the slots in the corresponding side. Just like last time, the two sheets should be at roughly a 90-degree angle to each other, so you can see I'm folding them down in the middle quite a bit. Once all your tabs are interlocking, pull the sheets apart lightly again to set them into place. This step can be a bit tricky, so take your time or ask a friend for help if need be. For the next step, we'll need 4 of the brass studs and 4 of the brass screws that you can find in the hardware bag. Turn the shell of the cone over so you're looking at the back, and what we want to see specifically are the 4 small holes. The larger hole in the middle will be used for another step, so you can ignore that for now. For each of the small holes, take one of your brass screws and insert it from the inside of the cone, and fasten one of the brass studs down on top of that. You only need to tighten it down with your hand and don't need a screwdriver for this step. Repeat this process until you have a brass stud and screw inserted to each of the 4 small holes in the back of the cone. If you have a felt wrap, you also need to insert a brass stud and screw into the 2 small holes on the front of the cone on either side of the large opening. If you have a sisal wrap, you can skip this step, but save the brass studs for later, in case you want to switch to a felt wrap anytime in the future. Next, we're going to attach the shell to the frame. You'll need 3 small screws for this step that you can find in the hardware bag. Start by picking up the shell and placing it over the top of the frame so that none of the posts obstruct the door. You may need to shape the shell a bit to get it to fit over the wood base. Now we're going to insert one of the small screws into each of the 3 remaining holes in the side of the cone, and fasten it to the corresponding hole underneath on each of the wood posts. You may need to wiggle the shell a bit to get the holes to line up perfectly. These screws do not need to be tightened down, they only need to be flush with the shell of the cone. Now we're going to insert the large felt pad into the cone. You can insert just one, or if you have multiples, you can stack them up and just have your favorite color on top. Fold the pad slightly to make it more easily fit through the doorway, and place it on the bottom of the cone with the notches in the pad corresponding with the locations of the post inside the cone. If you have the felt wrap, start with the side that has the Wiski logo and push the 4 small holes over the 4 brass studs on the back of the cone. Wrap the material around the cone and fasten the 2 small holes over the corresponding brass studs on the front. Now push the holes on the remaining edge over the 4 brass studs that we started with. As you go, you can tuck the extra flaps of material under the other edge of the wrap for a more finished look. The wrap is intentionally designed with a tight fit as it will loosen slightly over time, so don't be too surprised if it takes a little bit of elbow grease to get it on, especially the first time. If you have the sisal wrap, pay attention to the inside shown here, and the outside which has the Wiski logo visible. Similar to the felt wrap, we're going to push the holes in the black plastic material over the 4 brass studs. Each one should make a popping sound as it's locked into place. Wrap the material around the cone and push the holes on the remaining edge over the same column of brass studs. Just like the felt, the sisal wrap was designed to be quite tight as it may loosen slightly over time. We find it's easiest to start at the top and work your way down. Once your wrap is securely attached to the cone, you can tuck one of the sisal edges under the other for a more finished look. If you're having trouble getting your wrap on, we recommend trying to lay your cone on its side, which can make things a little bit easier. In this orientation, we find it's easiest to start from the bottom and work your way towards the top. You should now have a fully assembled cone, but if you're still having any trouble after watching this video, please reach out to us at help@wiskicat.com. Thanks so much for watching.